The most famous real crimes that took place around the world. Part 4. Let's start the video. One. St. Valentine's Day Massacre. With the deaths of 7 men in the late 1920s, Chicago's gang war reached a climax. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre was a terrible scene that would live on in infamy. Al Scarface Capone planned this heinous mob killing to finally eliminate his competitor George "Bugs" Moran and establish himself as the Chicago mob's top dog. 4 of Capone's men arrived at Moran's warehouse on the morning of February 14, 1929, where he illegally sold whiskey. Capone is thought to have persuaded Moran to the warehouse by claiming that one of his bootlegging operations in Canada needed assistance. 5 of Moran's men, accompanied by 2 auto mechanics, responded to Capone's call. They filed into the warehouse, oblivious to the fact that Capone's men were waiting for them. Albert Weinshank, the last of Moran's men to arrive, was confronted by 2 police officers as he exited his Cadillac sedan on the street and made his way inside the warehouse. Moran's men, fearful of being apprehended, formed a line against the wall, their backs to the cops, and remained silent so as not to expose their leader. The individuals who had stopped them, on the other hand, were not police officials. They were Capone's men in disguise. 2 more of Capone's men, dressed in civilian clothing and with submachine guns, stepped inside after Moran's men were lined up against the wall. The men were showered with gunshots. 6 of them died instantly, but one endured terrible agony for hours before succumbing to his injuries in a hospital bed. Bugs Moran, the plan's original target, was never found. Weinshank had been mistaken for Moran by the men, a mistake that saved Bugs Moran's life. Capone was the most obvious suspect, yet he managed to escape detection. No one has ever been charged with the murders. Capone never claimed responsibility for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre's brutality and bloodshed. Two. JonBenet Ramsey. For more than 2 decades, the terrible unsolved murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey had enthralled the country. JonBenet Ramsey was a well-known beauty queen who lived in Boulder, Colorado, with her parents, Patricia and John Ramsey, and her 9-year-old brother, Burke. The Ramsey family's lives were turned upside down. The morning after Christmas in 1996, Patsy dialed 911 in a panic, claiming she had discovered a ransom letter for their daughter. The 3-page note sought $118,000 from the wealthy Ramsey family in exchange for JonBenet's safe return. But JonBenet hadn't been kidnapped in the normal sense. Her body was discovered inside the family's house just hours afterward. Following a thorough examination of the body, it was discovered that JonBenet had been sexually abused and had suffered a skull fracture. A device built from one of her mother's paintbrushes had also strangled the 6-year-old. JonBenet's killing was ruled a homicide, but police mistakes at the crime scene made finding the culprit extremely impossible. Because of contradicting stories and the fact that the ransom note was written on house paper, the Ramsey family was questioned. Although John and Patsy were never charged with the crime, while Burke has also been suspected by some. Police questioned and investigated plenty of additional suspects, but none yielded any results. JonBenet Ramsey's sad death remains unsolved to this day. 3. The Zodiac Killer. Most criminals keep their misdeeds hidden. But Zodiac, as he called himself, was different from such criminals. He terrorized San Francisco with his murder spree from 1968 to 1969, teasing the cops with coded messages to the local paper. Although he claims to have killed 37 people, he was directly linked to at least 5 murders. When Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Arthur Faraday, 17, were discovered lying outside of their bullet-riddled automobile, he was terrified. Jensen died of 5 gunshot wounds to her back at the scene, while Faraday died of a bullet wound to the head en route to the hospital. A half-year later, a couple who had parked their car 4 miles away from the crime scene was similarly gunned down, with one person injured and the other murdered. Michael Mageau, a survivor, was able to describe the killer. He described himself as a 5'8" Caucasian male with a heavy build. The remaining evidence would be given to the police by the Zodiac Killer himself. Police got an odd call at 12:48 a.m. the same night. I wish to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They have been shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. The first letter from the Zodiac Killer was delivered to the media a month later. He threatened to go on a murdering spree unless the letter was published on the main page. The murders were described in the letter, which was written in cryptic ciphers that appeared to constitute a code. This was a recurring subject in his subsequent letters, which were all signed with a crossed circle symbol. A high school instructor and his wife decoded one of these letters. It said, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is THAE when I die I will be reborn in paradise. And THE I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to SLOI down or atop my collection of slaves for my afterlife Eburiatum FPID." The Zodiac Killer continued to kill and leave police with frustrating evidence. Coded messages, anonymous phone calls, the crossed circle, scribbled on victims' automobiles, sending over blood-stained clothing, and testimonies from survivors, but they never caught him. The Tamanshid Case. The Zodiac Killer wasn't the only one who liked to play with codes. A body was discovered on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia, on December 1, 1948. The man's body was in excellent shape, with no visible injuries. He was well dressed. However, all of his clothing labels were missing. He had a railway ticket to Henley Beach in his pocket, which he had never used. They discovered a bag related to him at Adelaide Railroad Station a month later. Its label, as well as the labels on the clothing within, were removed. Unfortunately, it yielded no results, just as his autopsy revealed no foreign substance in his body that may be linked to the poisoning. A month later, they discovered the most important but perplexing evidence in a hidden pocket in the man's slacks. Tamanshid, it said. Officials from the public library were summoned to translate the sentence. They deduced that it meant completed or ending, which they discovered in Omar Khayyam's Rubaiyat, a collection of poems. Police immediately began a nationwide search for the book from which the scraps were torn. A man claimed that he discovered the book in the back seat of his open car a week or two before the body was discovered. An odd code was scratched out in pencil on the back of it. A nurse's phone number was also obtained, though the nurse claimed to have delivered a copy of the rebate to an army officer called Alfred Boxall. The man who discovered the book, as well as the nurse, denied any link to the deceased guy. They never followed up on the case. However, many believe it was a suicide because the book's theme was about having no regrets when one's life came to an end. Others believe he is a spy, and his grave will continue to read till there are any breaks in the case. Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach December 1, 1948.